All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be entry number 3, aka volume 3, in a series that I started a very long time ago called Be Somebody, Be a Hoe. And this one is going to be featuring Mr. Robert Kraft, the embattled owner of the New England Patriots. And why am I creating the Robert Kraft video under this series of Be Somebody, Be a Hoe? Am I calling Robert Kraft a hoe? No, not necessarily. He might be a damn hoe. Who knows? But this is more in reference to the sentiment that I put forth in that series, that being the legalization of prostitution. And it's a very controversial topic, very controversial subject matter. And the reason why it's so controversial is because right now, Western society, the American so-called societal mores are at odds with what to do with that topic, what to do with that issue. And it is a very relevant issue because we're constantly being told, inundated as a society, with this sentiment that the woman can do whatever she wants with her body. No one can tell her what to do. And she's been given so many liberties with how she can conduct herself sexually that she can even murder a fetus that's growing within her womb based on the pretext that since she's the carrier of the fetus, she therefore has the right to do with the fetus whatever she wants. And due to the fact that the woman has been given so many rights/liberties in this society, one would think that they would just extend it all the way out to her being able to make a living off of her vagina. And the reason why I'm a proponent of this society legalizing prostitution is because I believe that without a shadow of a doubt, it would clear up a lot of the confusion that has befallen so many people, whether it be men, woman, or child, when it comes to exactly what you want to do in life, how you want to be treated, and what role you want to play. See, brothers, right now they've created this nebulous gray area for the woman to dwell in, where she could be a liberated woman, she could be strong, she could stand up for females, and she also can be a hoe and nobody can call her a hoe. When a woman decides that she's struggling with her bills or with her mortgage or with her rent, and therefore she's going to initiate a quote-unquote relationship with a man because she believes that he can help her with her bills or with other necessities, utilities, etc., she's a prostitute. All prostitution is utilizing sex to make sure that you can earn a living. That's what it is. You have certain females out here who decide that they want to be extremely quote-unquote promiscuous just because. They may already be making a relatively quote-unquote good living at their job or career or what have you. They just decide that they want to throw their vagina around like a frisbee. These are all dynamics in this modern day society that so many men are dealing with and are struggling with, to be quite frank with you, because they don't understand what's what. They start to quote unquote date a woman, and after a period of time passes, whether it be months or even years, she starts to show different characteristics about herself. She may declare to that man that she's going to deal with other men just because she can or because that's what she feels like doing. And men genetically are hard encoded with the notion that a woman is theirs, whether men or women want to admit that or not. Even the woman understands this, which is why every once in a while she will reflexively state that she wants a man who's a manly man who's going to claim her, so on and so forth. But so many of these ancillary components that have been thrown into the pot of this society have confused everybody. And that's why if you simply legalize prostitution, you'll find that the woman will be forced to make a decision that will create a distinction in who she is and what she is. Are you a woman who wants to be a wife, or do you want to be a prostitute? Because I promise you, brothers, if they legalize prostitution today, there would be a brothel on every other corner, and the line would be around the block for many of these females to work there. I promise you that. All it would take is for the vocation or the duty of a prostitute, quote unquote, to be demonized. Once that job is no longer demonized, you will see that your next door neighbor, the woman downstairs, the chick working in your office, they all gonna quit whatever they're doing and they're gonna run and go work at that brothel. And that brings us to Mr. Robert Kraft. They're trying to make him out to be the worst person on the planet Earth because he went to a massage parlor and got a couple of happy endings. Who gives a shit? And that's the reason why they're throwing the sex trafficking storyline, the sex trafficking component into this story. Because they have to make it look like they're bringing women from overseas against their will to have sex with men. And maybe that is an actual aspect of this case or this narrative. Who knows? If that's the case, let me make it very clear that that is a very heinous thing. And there are hundreds of thousands of people all across America who are being kidnapped and ferried from this place to that place to act as an unwitting or unwilling sex slave for somebody else. And this is happening in the higher levels of the U.S. government from the time of the quote unquote Franklin cover up or the Franklin conspiracy dating back well over 30 years ago. They've known about this, that high level government officials are kidnapping children, both girls and boys, grown women, and selling them into sex slave rings, not only for the pleasure of people all across the country, but also all across the world. And many of those people are also being utilized in ritualistic, quote unquote, satanic sacrifice. So let me get that out the way. But do I believe that Robert Kraft is part of a conspiracy to kidnap women from certain parts of Southeast Asia and bring them over here to America to have sex with him? No, I do not. I just think that he's someone who got a little bit sloppy. But then again, you never know. Robert Kraft is a high-level Kabbalist. Therefore, he believes and understands that anyone who is not ascending through the crafts or has an understanding of the importance of venerating Baal, they're trash, they're goyim, to be used and misused and sent on their way. But just getting back to the point, do I think that he had a hand in any type of trafficking? No. I think that the Jupiter police are just trying to make a splash. That's what I believe. And there's no way in the world that a billionaire is is going to be incarcerated for having sex with some masseuse in a parlor in Florida. But right now, anything involving women is a hot topic on the mainstream media. Anything even closely resembling the misuse or the mishandling of the feminine principle, you're going to be a target to be ridiculed on national television. Now, as you can see, Miss Molly Karam here already has a derisive look on her face because she has to play the role of the oppressed woman. I promise you that 95% of the females that you see on television slept with the right guy to get to where they're at. That's just my view of it. It is what it is. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
To reiterate, police said Friday that Robert Kraft is facing 2 counts of soliciting another to commit prostitution. Police said there is video of Kraft paying for a sex act inside a Palm Beach County massage parlor.
I have to ask this question. When they say that there is video of Robert Kraft paying for a sex act, are they talking about at the front desk to pay for the massage? Or are they saying that after the female completed the sex act that he requested, he left money on the nightstand, or he gave money to the woman? Because they're just talking about him paying at the counter. That's not going to hold up. You know, you'd be shocked how little the police or the police forces in most of these communities across the United States actually know about the law. And that's why they try to throw all these silly charges on people to make a show of it and make a splash. And then most of those charges get dropped because the average police officer knows nothing about the law whatsoever. They have very little idea of what's actually going to stick.
Caller. Stephen A., your reaction to the latest allegations?
Devastation. That's the word that comes to my mind because in the
Devastation. That's the word that comes to my mind because that was me and Bob Kraft's spot. We used to go there and smoke cigars and get our cigars smoked. And I can't believe he has the audacity, the temerity, the unmitigated gall to fuck up a good thing like that.
In the interest of full disclosure, I have a very good relationship with Robert Kraft.
I bet you do.
I've known him for years. We've spoken on frequent occasions, one-on-one.
About that spot in Florida. Yeah, I've spoken many times about that spot, right, Steve? Allegedly.
I've got a lot of admiration and respect for the man, and that's well documented. I've said that publicly, and obviously I'm not going to shy away from that now. When you heard the news, my initial reaction, Max and Molly, is that I've seen him at Celtics games, for example, and out in public, and he's had a young girlfriend with him. So when I first heard the news, I was under the impression that he was with her and they got busted doing whatever they were doing.
Why would you think that, Stephen A. Smith? The man is a billionaire. As you just stated, he has a young girlfriend with him. So you think that that's someone who's going to take sand to the beach? You really believe that that's the only female that Bob Kraft is bopping? Yeah, I'm going to take her to the massage parlor and have sex with her in the massage parlor. That makes no damn sense.
In a parlor. And then I heard the news about sex trafficking and this sting operation, and that changes everything. Because obviously when you think about sex trafficking, we know, we hear rather of what sex trafficking entails. Sometimes it's immigrants. Obviously, a lot of times it's young girls, young boys in the United States of America.
Well, Steve, they refuse to talk about that component. They don't want to talk about the young boys being sold into sex trafficking, just like they don't want to speak about the young boys and young men who are being victimized in Hollywood and all across the upper crust of the United States. They just want to keep it about the woman, because the woman is the new face of victimhood, or I should not say the new face of victimhood. They're the most prominent face of victimhood on the national media airwaves. That's all they care about, is what happens to the woman.
That have been victimized, that have been forced to do things against their will and what have you. And to have your name associated with this isn't good for anybody. But then when you take into account Mr. Kraft himself, who's known for his philanthropy, who's known for his
Yeah, he's known for his philanthropy, all right. He was trying to give away some money shots in that damn parlor.
His philanthropic efforts towards worthy causes, including things like this. To see his name involved in this, just no way around it. It's not a good look at all. You hope and pray that, you know what, the solicitation of prostitution, which is a second-degree misdemeanor, is all that's going on here. But
well, you would hope for that. Would it shock me if it's something bigger? No, it really would not. But one would think that if Robert Kraft were indeed complicit in a sex trafficking ring, that he would be a lot more discreet. If you're Robert Kraft, do you really need to do that? Do you need to be directly involved in sex trafficking and then go and play in the sand, play in the dirt per se, and be that sloppy? But some guys get that sloppy. But I just doubt it. I just think that he's just a horny old man who wanted some $5 sucky action.
But even if that is all that it is, he's still going to pay. Jim Irsay in 2014, the owner for the Indianapolis Colts, got fined $500,000 and was suspended for 6 games after pleading guilty to a misdemeanor DWI charge.
Yes, he was. So if Robert Kraft is found guilty, or maybe even not even found guilty, I'm sure that he's going to get at least 6 games, because the NFL is trying to distance itself from anything that may bear a correlation between the quote-unquote unjust or undue or harsh treatment of women and the NFL. They've allowed themselves to be browbeaten by the liberal components of the media into conforming and making sure that they now exalt the feminine aspect and the homosexual aspect as much as they can, without making the fans believe that there's a strong homosexual element amongst their players. Michael Sam would have had to be on the level of Lawrence Taylor for the NFL to be able to withstand his presence in the league. They had to get him out.
If he got $500,000 fine and a 6-game suspension for a DWI conviction, or pleading guilty to that, and the commissioner's on the record saying that owners, management, etc., must be held to an even higher standard than the players, then there is no getting around the fact that the commissioner, Raj Goodell, is going to be compelled to have a heavier hand in dealing with Robert Kraft.
Of course, but I mean, what does a heavier hand really mean? Robert, we're going to suspend you for half the season, so that means 8 games. We're going to fine you $1 million. Robert Kraft is going to take that out of his penny loafers and hand over the $1 million in cash and say, no problem, it is what it is. I understand.
And if you're Robert Kraft, I mean, the Robert Kraft that I know, that I've spoken to on numerous occasions, that other people know and swear by, his reputation is incredibly important to him. Him being recognized for being somebody who's charitable and philanthropic in so many ways, in so many areas.
Well, Steve, is it his reputation that's that important to him, or is it the optics that are that important to him? Perception oftentimes has more power than reality, because perception can be manipulated. Reality really can't be changed too much, but you can affect how you're perceived. So I can understand to a degree him being a little worried about what the ramifications may be of his name being associated with something like sex trafficking. But I do believe that he's going to find a way out of this. I don't believe, or I don't think that it would be realistic to assume that he's directly involved in sex trafficking. But would it absolutely shock me? No. No, it wouldn't. Because I put very little past most of these billionaire owners. And as I've stated already, Bob Kraft is a Kabbalist. So he looks at anyone who's not a member of the Kraft as someone just to be used and discarded.
For him to be associated with something like this is going to be a devastating blow to his reputation.
And everything that I'm saying is alleged, by the way. All right, let me get that out there. Everything I'm saying is alleged.
And he's going to have to deal with that, because in the end, nobody expects, assuming it's just about the solicitation of prostitution, Max, nobody's anticipating that jail time will come from this.
No, jail time's not going to come from this, Stephen A. Smith. Robert Kraft has more than enough money to offset the charges.
What everybody's anticipating is that the biggest penalty will be the embarrassment to his name and reputation. And obviously, that's a very, very real possibility, or a very real likelihood in all of this.
How do you talk about a subject like this on a popular sports show?
By getting right to the point and not beating around the bush, Max Kellerman. I understand that he's a fellow Caucasian Jew like yourself, so maybe you want to tiptoe around the issue. But you do have to get to the point, sir.
Mm-hmm. Particularly on Disney, right? On a Disney-owned network, which is based upon the premise of bringing people together
to perform pedophilia, child ritual sacrifice, blood drinking, Luciferian veneration, so on and so forth. That's what Disney's priorities and principles have always been from its inception. Okay? Allegedly.
By celebrating our best values and traditions, right?
Yes, that's why Disney was trying to push so hard for the veneration of a transsexual like Bruce/Caitlyn Jenner. That was the beginning of the downfall of ESPN. Right now, ESPN is such a monolith and really such a monopoly in the sports reporting world that there's not much that can truly affect them. But that Caitlyn/Bruce Jenner narrative, where they gave that person the SB for courage or something like that, that really hurt their network. And it caused a lot of people to unsubscribe from ESPN. And as we all know, ESPN is a subsidiary of Disney. And anyone who's researched Disney knows that they've been a fountain for mind control and other insidious aspects of the quote-unquote shadow government or quote-unquote deep state for a very long time now, allegedly.
Right. And so in this political climate especially, things that are divisive and stuff or controversial, people shy away from, and they're very careful about the way they talk about it. And so you hear people speak in cliche, right? For example, but some cliches deserve some examination more than others.
Now, brothers, do you see how careful and how calculated Max Kellerman is with the opening statements and his input on this story? Now, imagine if it were Donald Trump, who was associated with a massage parlor that was at the center of a human trafficking or a sex trafficking ring, what Max Kellerman would have stated, or how he would have opened up his version or his perspective on the story at large. I promise you it would have been far more acerbic, vitriolic, whatever term you want to use.
I will use one now to tell you how I think about it to begin with. We must wait until the facts come out.
I got you.
But I think that's an important idea that people shouldn't just hear as part of the way of talking about this without really talking about it, without really dealing with it.
You mean like how you do with Trump?
Wait till the facts come out. When there are allegations or charges, that is different than guilt. There's a presumption of innocence. So first we need to wait until the facts come out before we judge. And the reason...
Well, look, we already know one of the facts. The man went there twice to the massage parlor, got some $5 sucky action. I really could care less. As I've told you brothers already, they should have legalized prostitution a very long time ago. The only reason why they have not and probably will not, well, there's more than one reason. Number one, in order for them to legalize prostitution, the government would have to moderate it. And for the government to moderate prostitution, that just leaves too many holes for the criminal aspect or for someone insidious to take advantage of it, involving children, so on and so forth. Plus, the government would have to be able to ascertain how to tax it. And then on top of that, and the number one reason why they probably won't legalize prostitution is because the dual aspect of how they want to project or promote the feminine principle in this society is one of veneration. So the woman has to live under the pretense that she can be a whore, but not a whore at the same time. If they legalize prostitution, that's their way of being straightforward with the woman. Either you're going to be a whore or you're going to be a woman. So if you decide that you want to work at a brothel, that's what you are, except that most women like to live in that very nebulous area where they can be more than one thing and tell themselves that they're clean when they're not clean. And the powers that be that control this society, they understand that. And so they have to perpetuate that by making sure that prostitution is demonized, especially quote unquote illegal prostitution.
The reason I gave a preamble about cliche is because a lot of times you also hear things like both sides. Both sides is cliche, usually used unthinkingly to mean I'm going to abdicate responsibility for actually analyzing the situation and coming to a conclusion. And I'll just say both sides, or thought.
Dude, you've been talking now for about a minute and a half and you said nothing. The real issue is that Robert Kraft is a very high-level Kabbalist, a Caucasian Jew like yourself, and you don't want to try to step on him because you're worried about how it might come back to you, especially in your circles.
Thoughts and prayers is often said around topics of controversy or tragedy especially, to mean rather than do something, we'll just say thoughts and prayers, we can move on to the next subject. But wait until the facts come out is not that. That's really important. So I want to emphasize that here because I do the same thing with players. If we play...
You do the same thing with players, do you? What about certain players who may have been accused of hitting a woman? Do you really say, wait until the facts come out and that player happens to be a so-called black man? I stated this a very long time ago on this channel. The hierarchy for the liberal media is always going to be black men at the bottom. It's transgender, homosexual, woman, and then everybody else. And the so-called black man's at the very, very bottom. They throw you some crumbs every once in a while because they want you to continue to play the foot soldier for the liberal movements. They need the black man's manpower to act as the engine for what they try to do. So that's why you'll see many times the feminists will try to throw a little bone at the black man. The homosexuals will try to throw a bone at the black man. Hey, you know, we're all in this together. We're fighting against oppression. They're just trying to use you.
Players finds himself in trouble and say, let's wait till the facts come out. I want to make that clear. That said, clearly...
Even Molly Karam had to exhale. She's like, what are you talking about?
Clearly, if the facts come out and he is not guilty of any of this stuff, then we move on. However, if there is some guilt, the question is what happens next.
Right, but there's pretty much already guilt because they have Robert Kraft on video receiving sexual favors from the woman. So that's already something. I mean, hell, even if you having sex with your woman in a closet and there's a camera there, if they want to, they could throw a charge on you, you know, indecent something in public. So they could do anything. There's already been confirmed that Robert Kraft did something illegal. The only question right now is how deeply involved is he in this? Was this a place that he knew was going to offer him favors of a sexual nature? Could he possibly also be involved in the illegal sex trafficking aspect of getting these females to America? That's the only question right now. That's why this is a major story. As I've stated before, to me, this is not a big deal. This is an extremely affluent, wealthy person who decided that he was going to go and, you know, get a little $5 sucky. Simple as that. They don't like that in America because they want men to believe here that you should view the woman still as a traditional wife, even though she's already declared that she no longer wants to embrace that title for herself. And if she does it in pretense because she believes that she's at the very least equal to or better than you, especially if you're a so-called black man. So once again, this is why this is part of the series Be Somebody, Be a Hoe, because this is much ado about nothing.
You brought it up. Owner.
At least from the standpoint of Robert Kraft doing what he did on the surface. Now, if it's revealed that he's involved in bringing these broads over here from Shanghai or some shit, that's another component. That's a whole other level.
Owners are held to a higher standard than players, or they're supposed to. They're supposed to be held to an even higher standard. I would expect the league to deal with Robert Kraft, if these things are true, if they're true, at least as harshly as they would deal with a player. At least that harshly. Maybe even something along the lines of draft picks forfeited, because after all, it's his team. And so I
they don't give a shit about no damn draft picks.
That's what I'm prepared to say about this right now.
Can I say one thing before we go to break quickly here? And I'm not being careful or anything. I'm just speaking from the heart, and it's not about Robert Kraft. It has nothing to do with Robert Kraft. It has nothing to do with football. I just want to take an opportunity to bring light to human trafficking. This is modern day slavery. This is sexual slavery. There's hundreds of...
Let me say this to many of you brothers out there. A lot of you brothers, because she's about to go off or diverge into her own little spiel, and part of what she's saying is relevant, so I'll let her continue. But let me also say this. When you brothers go on the internet and you meet these little broads on Instagram or Facebook or something, and you living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she's living in Chicago, Illinois, and you say, let me fly you out, so on and so forth. If they wanted to, they could bust you for that. They could say that you're sex trafficking. You're trying to fly someone over across state lines for a sexual purpose. So we have to understand the nuance aspect of what they're saying here. Always keep that in mind, especially when you're communicating with these females over social media, over the internet, or what have you.
Of thousands of victims in our country, in our backyards, affecting young boys and young girls. And here's what I want people to understand, like in this specific massage parlor, right? And I'm not saying, I'm assuming Robert Kraft didn't know any of this. He did not know they were being held against their will. This massage parlor, this is like being in a prison. They eat there, they sleep there, they cannot leave. None of these women spoke English. A lot of times they're brought to this country sometimes against their will. They think they're going to have a different type of job. So when people are going to these establishments, doing these kinds of things and seeking pleasure or whatever they're deciding to do, that it's a much deeper issue. There's two things I want to read before we go to break. Unlike most crimes which involve the buying and selling of a product, human trafficking entails the buying and selling of human beings, and they're exploited over and over again. You can only sell a pile of drugs once, only sell guns once, only sell counterfeit property once, but human trafficking, you re-victimize a person every day, every hour. And I would argue it's one of the most serious crimes of all. And one more thing. Can you imagine having sex with someone you don't want to, and you have to hide the disgust on your face and pretend to be pleased? Otherwise, you'll blow the call, you won't get the money, and be faced with violence.
Of course, that happens every day. That's called being a secretary in one of these major corporations. But continue on.
That's what every single day is like, over and over and over. I want to leave it there. The last thing I want to say to everyone out there, if you've seen what could be human trafficking, or if you need help, the National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. It is confidential. There's also humantraffickinghotline.org.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. As I've already stated in this video, human sex trafficking is certainly a major component. It's a very big deal. It's something that brothers should keep at the forefront of their minds, especially if you have children, because many of these children who get kidnapped, they do get sold into child sex trafficking rings, and many of them end up getting sacrificed, normally ritualistically, by witch covens out in groves and in the woods and many wooded areas all across the United States and across the world. But just to get back to the overall point, do I believe that they should legalize prostitution? Yes, I do. But just to get back to the overall point, do I believe that they should legalize prostitution? Yes, I do. Do I necessarily believe that men should be utilizing prostitutes? Well, it's up to you. But as a grown man, you have to understand the difference between a wife and a concubine. That's the main thing. Certain people might get upset, oh, how could you say that they should legalize prostitution? Bro, as soon as they quote-unquote liberated the woman, they legalized prostitution. Because what they told the woman and the man is that there's not going to be any recompense for time lost or money lost when a female decides that she's going to jump from man to man. That's what they told you. So you have to understand the society that you're living in. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, it's like the term a rose by any other name. You can call a female a liberated woman, but you're really calling her a hoe. That's really what you're calling her. A lot of people might not like that, accept that, or believe that. But the original purpose of the woman was to act as a helpmeet to the man. Now, because of all these various dynamics and components that have been introduced, so many of these dudes out here, and I covered this already earlier in this video, they're very confused. And the reason why they want that confusion to persist is because by the time you've understood exactly what's going on, you're probably paying a lot of money every month in child support and alimony. Okay? So if they legalize prostitution, you'll know that chick is a hoe. I don't want to deal with hoes. I want to deal with a wife. And you'll meet a woman who wants to be a wife and not a hoe, because if she did, she'd go work at the brothel. You understand? That's the distinction that has to be made. When you don't legalize prostitution, you don't know who's who until it's too late. But anyway, peace.